It was a bright, sunny morning at the airport. The terminal was busy, filled with the usual hustle of travelers rolling suitcases and announcements over the loudspeakers. Families said goodbye, business people hurried to their gates, and children ran excitedly with their parents. Among all these people was a young black teenager, full of energy and anticipation. He was traveling alone for the first time, heading to a city he had always wanted to visit. His backpack was slung over his shoulder, and he clutched his boarding pass tightly, checking the gate number one more time. The teen walked confidently, trying to stay calm despite the nerves fluttering in his stomach. He had dreamed about this trip for months. He had saved up from his small part-time jobs and begged his parents to let him experience flying on his own. This was not just a trip. It was a chance to prove to himself that he could manage responsibility, handle challenges, and explore the world outside his hometown. As he approached the gate, he noticed a line of passengers already waiting to board. Some were chatting with friends or family, while others were quietly scrolling on their phones. The teen joined the line, smiling politely at a few people around him. He kept to himself, trying not to stand out, though that had never been his style. He was friendly and approachable, and it showed. But on the other side of the counter, the pilot was watching him. The pilot, a middle-aged white man with a serious expression, had been briefing the staff and checking the passenger list. When he saw the teen approaching the gate, something in him seemed unsettled. There was no clear reason, nothing the teen had done, yet the pilot's eyes lingered on him a little too long. Maybe it was the teen's confident walk, or perhaps just an unconscious bias creeping in, but the pilot's frown deepened. The teen didn't notice the pilot at first. He was busy ensuring he had everything in order, boarding pass, ID, and his carry-on bag properly secured. But when he reached the front of the line, the pilot stepped forward, his body language tense. "Excuse me," he said, his tone curt. "I need to ask you a few questions." The teen looked up, slightly startled. "Sure," he said politely. "Is there a problem?" The pilot hesitated for a moment, glancing around as if seeking validation from the nearby flight attendants. "I just need to make sure you're authorized to board," he said a little too sharply. "Your ID and boarding pass, please." The teen handed them over, keeping his expression calm. He had nothing to hide. The boarding pass was valid, his ID matched, and everything was in perfect order. The flight attendants checked quickly and returned his documents. Still, the pilot didn't seem satisfied. He studied the teen's face as though trying to find something wrong, something suspicious. Confused, the teen asked, "Is there something wrong? I'm on the list, aren't I?" The pilot's frown deepened. I need to call security," he muttered under his breath, more to himself than anyone else. At that moment, the teen felt his stomach drop. His heart raced and a wave of disbelief washed over him. "Security for me?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Other passengers began to notice the tension. Some stopped talking and looked over, sensing that something unusual was happening. The pilot picked up the phone and dialed the airport police. As he did, the teen could feel the eyes of the people around him. A few whispered, exchanging puzzled glances. No one could understand why a young, polite teenager, simply trying to board a flight, would be under suspicion. The teen tried to explain himself calmly. "I'm just boarding my flight. I have my ID and boarding pass. I'm traveling alone, but everything is in order." His words were measured, but his voice had a slight tremor. Anyone could hear the tension in the room. The pilot waved him off, speaking into the phone. "Yes, I need security at gate 12. There's a passenger here who seems unusual." The teen's confusion turned into frustration, but he swallowed it, reminding himself that losing his temper would only make things worse. He took a deep breath and said, "Sir, I've done nothing wrong. I don't understand why this is happening." Security arrived within minutes. 2 officers in uniforms approached, looking serious but professional. The teen stood still, hoping this misunderstanding would be cleared quickly. He explained again that he was the passenger for the flight and had all necessary documents. He answered every question politely, his calm demeanor standing in contrast to the tension in the room. Passengers nearby were watching quietly. Some felt sympathy for the teen, while others seemed uncomfortable, unsure how to react. A few parents whispered to their children, using the moment as a lesson about patience and understanding. The teen, meanwhile, kept his composure, even as his palms grew sweaty and his heart thumped loudly in his chest. The pilot, however, seemed unyielding. He insisted that security needed to verify the teen's information. The teen nodded, cooperating fully. He wanted nothing more than to board the plane and enjoy his trip. But the growing humiliation and stress were hard to ignore. While the security officers checked the documents, the teen noticed a few passengers giving him supportive smiles. One elderly woman nodded reassuringly, and a young man whispered, "Don't worry, it'll be fine." These small gestures helped the teen keep his calm, reminding him that not everyone in the room judged him unfairly. As the minutes passed, the situation began attracting more attention. The boarding process had slowed, and some passengers were now muttering to the gate staff about the delay. The teen's stomach twisted with anxiety, but he stayed composed, explaining his situation each time a new person asked. Finally, the officers confirmed that the teen's information was correct. Everything was in order, just as he had said. The teen exhaled slowly, relief washing over him, but the tension did not completely vanish. The pilot's frown lingered, and his body language revealed unease, though it was unclear whether it was guilt, embarrassment, or something else. The teen took a step forward, ready to board. But before he could, he felt a familiar hand on his shoulder. He turned to see his mother, calm yet commanding, walking toward him. She had arrived just in time, and the room seemed to shift instantly. People began whispering, noticing the change in energy as she approached. Her presence was powerful, quiet but unmistakable. She didn't need to raise her voice to make everyone notice her authority. The teen felt a sense of safety and pride in seeing his mother step into the situation. She looked directly at the pilot, her eyes steady, her posture confident. The pilot's eyes widened slightly, and for a moment he seemed speechless. There was a pause, a moment of tension where everyone waited for her to speak. The teen could see that something had changed in the room. The air felt heavier, charged with curiosity and anticipation. The mother didn't need to say much. Her reputation, presence, and authority were clear to everyone. She calmly approached the pilot and began speaking in a measured tone. The teen stood beside her, feeling a mix of relief and amazement at how composed she was. Passengers leaned slightly forward, trying to catch every word. The teen realized that the situation, though stressful, was about to turn in his favor. He had been prepared to defend himself, but now with his mother here it seemed almost unnecessary. As she spoke, the pilot's expression shifted from stern suspicion to confusion. He realized, slowly and uncomfortably, that the teen he had called security on was no ordinary passenger, and the person standing in front of him, the one who commanded respect with a single glance, was the mother of that teen. At that moment, the teen felt a sense of vindication. He had stayed calm under pressure, and now, with his mother's arrival, the unfairness of the situation was about to be addressed. The tension in the room was palpable, and everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. The teen glanced at his mother, grateful for her presence, and knew that this experience, though challenging, would teach him a valuable lesson about confidence, patience, and the importance of standing up against unfair treatment. The pilot, meanwhile, remained frozen, unsure how to respond to the authority and composure before him. The teen could almost feel the shift in power, a silent acknowledgement that the situation had turned. And as the first part of this story closed, the teen, his mother, and the surrounding passengers all waited for the next moment, one that would finally reveal the full truth behind this tense encounter. The moment the mother arrived, the atmosphere in the terminal shifted immediately. Conversations hushed, and all eyes seemed to follow her calm, confident walk toward the gate. People could feel the authority in her presence. The teen standing beside her felt a mixture of pride and relief. After minutes of tension, he finally saw hope. He had stayed calm, but even he couldn't deny the knot of worry that had been tightening in his stomach. The pilot was still frozen behind the counter. He stared at the mother, as if trying to process what he had just seen. His face showed a mix of shock, confusion, and unease. He had called security, convinced there was something wrong, and now it seemed everything was about to turn against him. The passengers around watched the scene unfold, whispering among themselves. Some shook their heads in disbelief, and a few looked uncomfortable, not knowing where to focus their attention. The mother stopped a few feet from the pilot and addressed him directly, her voice calm but firm. "I understand there was a misunderstanding," she began. But my son has every right to board this flight just like every other passenger here. The pilot blinked, still trying to collect himself. I was just following protocol, he stammered. The mother nodded slowly, her eyes steady. Following protocol is important, yes, but protocol should not be used as an excuse to target someone unfairly. My son has done nothing wrong. He has all necessary identification and has followed all the rules. The teen watched quietly, amazed at how composed and authoritative his mother was. She didn't raise her voice, didn't demand anything aggressively, yet everyone could sense her control over the situation. He felt a mix of pride and gratitude. He had never realized just how powerful her presence could be. The pilot cleared his throat, trying to regain some control over the conversation. I didn't mean to, the mother interrupted gently but firmly. Intentions matter, but so do actions. Calling security on a passenger without a valid reason is serious. It creates fear, embarrassment, and unnecessary tension. I hope you understand that. The pilot swallowed hard. He avoided direct eye contact and fidgeted slightly, clearly uncomfortable. For the first time, he realized the weight of his actions. The teen's mother wasn't just an ordinary passenger or parent. She was someone in a position of authority, someone who ran the airline itself. This wasn't a situation he could control with a phone call or excuses anymore. Security officers standing nearby exchanged glances. They had been calm and professional up until now, but even they seemed to sense the gravity of the moment. The passengers around were quiet, watching every word. Some had phones out, silently recording the encounter, while others whispered among themselves about what was happening. The teen felt his heart slow a little, relief beginning to wash over him. He had been nervous, anxious, and even scared just minutes ago, but now the tension seemed to shift. He could see the pilot's discomfort and knew that things were about to change. The mother had a presence that demanded respect, and it was clear that the pilot understood that fully. The mother turned slightly toward the teen, offering a small, reassuring smile. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Yeah, he replied, still feeling a bit shaken. "I'm fine now." "You handled that very well," she said, her voice gentle but filled with pride. "I know it was difficult, but you stayed calm, and that makes all the difference." The teen nodded, taking a deep breath. The anxiety that had been building for the past several minutes began to fade, replaced by a sense of pride in how he had handled himself. He realized that remaining composed, even when unfairly targeted, was a strength he could carry forward in life. Meanwhile, the pilot finally looked up, attempting to regain some semblance of authority. I didn't know who you were," he admitted, his voice low. I thought there might be a problem." The mother nodded. "I understand you didn't know, but assumptions like that can be harmful. They can make people feel unsafe, embarrassed, and unfairly judged. I hope this is a lesson for all of us about how quickly we can jump to conclusions without evidence." Passengers nearby nodded quietly, and a few murmured in agreement. It was clear to everyone watching that the situation had shifted. What had started as a tense, uncomfortable encounter was now a learning moment, not just for the pilot but for everyone observing. The teen stood close to his mother, feeling protected and understood. He realized that the ordeal, though stressful, was also an important experience. He had learned about patience, the importance of staying calm under pressure, and the power of having someone trustworthy and confident by your side. The pilot, still embarrassed, finally straightened his posture. He looked at the teen and then back at the mother. "I apologize for the inconvenience," he said quietly. "It wasn't my intention to cause trouble." The mother nodded, accepting the apology but keeping her tone serious. "Thank you. But it's important to remember that words and actions have consequences. I hope this incident helps you consider how your decisions affect others in the future." The teen could feel the weight of the moment. It wasn't about revenge or punishment. It was about recognition, fairness, and accountability. That realization made him feel stronger and more confident, knowing that even difficult situations could be addressed with honesty and composure. Airport staff began assisting other passengers to continue boarding, and the tense energy in the terminal slowly started to dissipate. The teen could finally breathe more easily, knowing he would be allowed to board without further incident. His backpack felt lighter on his shoulders, and he straightened his posture as he prepared to walk toward the gate. Before heading to the plane, the mother placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Remember, confidence and calmness are powerful tools, she said. You faced this situation bravely, and that will stay with you forever. The teen smiled, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. He had faced an unexpected challenge, one that could have shaken his confidence completely, but with his composure and his mother's support, he had emerged stronger. Passengers around them continued to watch quietly, some still whispering about the unusual scene they had witnessed. A few approached later to quietly express admiration for the teen's patience and his mother's professionalism. The mother nodded politely, her focus remaining on her son. She knew the experience was valuable for him, far more than any praise from strangers could provide. The pilot, now fully aware of the teen's background and his mother's position, stepped back and allowed the boarding process to continue. He avoided eye contact and seemed lost in thought, likely reflecting on the assumptions that had led to the incident. The teen noticed the shift in the room's energy and felt a quiet sense of vindication. As the teen finally walked toward the plane, he carried with him not just his backpack, but a newfound sense of confidence. The morning's events had been stressful, unfair, and challenging, yet they had also provided him with lessons in patience, dignity, and the importance of standing tall even when others doubt you. The mother followed closely, ensuring everything went smoothly. Her calm demeanor and quiet authority continued to make an impression on those around them. Airport staff and passengers alike seemed to acknowledge, even silently, the lesson that had just unfolded. Respect, fairness, and patience matter in every interaction. The teen glanced back once more at the pilot and the terminal, feeling a mix of triumph and understanding. He knew that this moment would stay with him, not as a source of shame, but as a reminder of how courage and composure could transform a tense, unfair situation into something meaningful and educational. And as he boarded the plane, the teen felt ready for the next part of his journey, not just the flight ahead, but the journey of life itself. He had faced fear, stayed calm under pressure, and witnessed the power of confidence and fairness. It was a morning he would never forget, a lesson in courage, respect, and human dignity that would shape the way he handled challenges in the future. After the mother spoke, the atmosphere in the terminal was tense but shifting. Passengers who had been quietly observing now began whispering among themselves. Some were shocked at what had happened, while others seemed relieved that the situation was finally being handled. The teen walked beside his mother, feeling a mix of pride, relief, and lingering nerves. He knew the ordeal wasn't completely over yet, but with his mother's calm authority he felt protected. The pilot remained behind the counter, visibly uncomfortable. He kept glancing at the teen and his mother, his face betraying a mixture of embarrassment and confusion. He realized that his actions had not only caused unnecessary stress to the teen, but had also drawn the attention of everyone in the terminal. He had expected compliance and routine, but instead, he faced scrutiny and an undeniable truth. The teen had done nothing wrong. Passengers began to whisper more openly. Some exchanged glances as if silently agreeing that what had happened was wrong. A few approached the teen cautiously, offering polite smiles or nods of support. One older woman said quietly, "It's not right what he did. You handled it so well, young man." The teen thanked her with a small, humble smile. He was still processing everything that had happened, but he felt encouraged by the support around him. The mother addressed the pilot again, her voice calm but firm. "I know you were acting out of concern for safety," she said, "but it's important to understand that assumptions based on appearances can have serious consequences. You need to think about the impact of your actions before making decisions like this in the future." The pilot nodded slowly, his face still showing discomfort. He seemed to be realizing just how badly he had misjudged the situation. Yes, I understand," he muttered, barely above a whisper. I see my mistake." The teen watched, feeling a quiet sense of vindication. It wasn't about punishing the pilot, it was about fairness and respect. He had stayed calm when things were unfair, and now the situation was being corrected without anyone needing to escalate it further. He felt proud of himself for keeping his composure. Airport staff and security officers had begun to relax, understanding that the situation was resolving. They returned to their usual duties, though a few kept a discreet eye on the pilot to ensure no further incidents occurred. The terminal slowly began to return to its usual rhythm, though the memory of what had happened lingered in the minds of many passengers. The teen's mother placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You did very well," she said quietly. "Staying calm, polite, and respectful, that's the best way to handle situations like this. People may judge, assume, or misunderstand, but your actions define you, not their assumptions." The teen nodded, taking a deep breath. He felt the tension in his chest begin to ease. The embarrassment, the fear, and the uncertainty that had weighed on him for so long were finally giving way to a sense of calm. He realized that he had grown stronger through this experience, learning lessons about patience, dignity, and the importance of standing tall even when treated unfairly. Passengers nearby continued to watch the scene unfold. Some whispered quietly to each other, sharing their observations. A young man leaned over to a friend and said, "Did you see that? The kid stayed so calm. And his mom? She handled it like a pro." The friend nodded, equally impressed. "Yeah, it's a lesson for everyone. You never know who you're dealing with until you know the full story." The pilot, still visibly embarrassed, straightened his posture and took a deep breath. He seemed to realize that any attempt to explain his actions further would only make things worse. He avoided eye contact with the teen and his mother, focusing instead on the terminal floor and the boarding process. The teen noticed a few passengers taking out their phones, quietly recording or sharing what had happened on social media. He didn't mind. If anything, he felt that sharing the story might help others understand the importance of fairness and not jumping to conclusions. It was a small comfort to know that people were witnessing the truth of the situation, even if only through a phone screen. As the teen prepared to continue toward the plane, the mother addressed the passengers around them. "We all make mistakes and sometimes we misjudge situations," she said. "But it's important to correct them when we can. Treat people with fairness and respect and listen before assuming the worst." Her words resonated with many people in the terminal. A few nodded quietly and some whispered affirmations to each other. It was clear that her calm, reasoned approach had left a lasting impression. The teen felt proud not only of himself but of how his mother had handled the situation with dignity and authority. The pilot finally spoke, his voice low and hesitant. I apologize to both of you," he said. "I didn't handle this well." The mother accepted the apology but maintained a serious tone. "Thank you for acknowledging that. Remember, every passenger deserves to be treated with fairness and respect. That is something I hope you will keep in mind going forward." The teen stepped forward, ready to leave the tense encounter behind. His backpack felt lighter, and he straightened his shoulders as he walked with his mother toward the gate. The terminal seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief, the tension easing as passengers returned to their routines. As they approached the plane, the teen glanced around. Some passengers offered quiet smiles or nods of support. Others whispered about what had happened, still processing the unusual and tense situation. He felt a sense of connection with the people around him, a shared understanding that fairness and calmness mattered, and that everyone could learn from what had just unfolded. Once they reached the plane, the teen and his mother paused briefly. "You're ready for this flight," she said softly. "Not just the journey in the air, but the journey of life. You've learned something important today about patience, composure, and how to handle unfair situations." The teen nodded, a small smile on his face. "I understand," he replied. "I'll remember this." The flight attendants welcomed them aboard with polite smiles, having already been briefed that the teen was cleared and everything was in order. The teen found his seat, feeling a mixture of excitement for the trip and satisfaction that the stressful situation had been handled. As he settled into his seat, he reflected on the morning's events. He realized that staying calm and composed had not only helped him, but had also allowed his mother to intervene effectively. The situation, though uncomfortable and unfair, had taught him valuable lessons about human behavior, patience, and the importance of self-control. The mother took a seat nearby, keeping a watchful eye on her son. She knew that he had faced a challenge that many adults would have struggled with, and she felt proud of how he had handled himself. She also knew that the experience would stay with him, shaping his approach to future challenges and interactions. The teen looked out the window as the plane began taxiing, feeling a sense of accomplishment. He had faced an unexpected challenge, handled it with dignity, and learned lessons that would serve him well in the future. The tension and fear that had gripped him earlier in the morning were now replaced with confidence and pride. Passengers around them continued to settle into their seats, some still quietly discussing the incident. A few glanced at the teen and his mother with expressions of respect and admiration. The terminal staff who had witnessed the earlier confrontation seemed relieved that everything had been resolved without further incident. As the plane began to move down the runway, the teen felt a sense of calm and excitement. He was finally embarking on his journey, ready to experience new places, meet new people, and enjoy the adventure he had been eagerly anticipating. The morning's challenges had prepared him, teaching him patience, resilience, and the value of composure in difficult situations. The mother smiled quietly, seeing the teen's confidence and calmness. She knew that the experience had strengthened him in ways that nothing else could. She also knew that the pilot and those who had witnessed the situation had learned something important about fairness, assumptions, and the power of calm authority. As the plane lifted off the ground, the teen leaned back in his seat, feeling a mixture of relief, excitement, and pride. He had faced fear, stayed composed under pressure, and witnessed the power of fairness and authority in action. The lessons of the morning would stay with him, guiding him in future challenges and interactions. And as the plane climbed higher into the sky, the teen realized that this journey was not just about reaching a destination. It was about growing stronger, wiser, and more confident in the face of life's unexpected challenges. Once the teen and his mother had returned to the boarding area, the tension that had gripped the terminal seemed to linger in the air. Passengers quietly resumed their conversations, but there was a noticeable shift. People were no longer just observing. They were processing what had happened. The mother, still calm and composed, stood beside her son, making it clear that she would not let the incident be ignored. She knew that this was more than just about clearing her son. It was about making sure lessons were learned and fairness was recognized. The pilot, still standing near the counter, seemed unsure of himself. His face was pale and his hands fidgeted slightly as he glanced at the teen and his mother. He was a man who had been used to control and authority, yet in this moment he felt the weight of his own misjudgment. For the first time he realized that assumptions, even those he thought were justified, could have serious consequences. The mother's presence remained commanding, yet gentle. She addressed the pilot directly, her tone steady. "This situation could have been handled differently," she said. "It is never acceptable to make judgments about a person based solely on appearance. Every passenger deserves fairness, dignity, and respect. I hope this serves as a reminder for the future." The pilot nodded, but he did not speak. It was clear that he was processing her words, understanding the gravity of what had just occurred. The teen, standing beside his mother, felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. Not satisfaction in seeing someone embarrassed, but satisfaction in witnessing justice and fairness being acknowledged. Passengers around them watched intently. Some whispered to each other, commenting on how unusual the situation had been. "I can't believe that happened," one man said quietly. "The kid did nothing wrong and she handled it perfectly." Another passenger nodded, agreeing. "It's amazing how calm she is. That's the way to handle something like this." The teen's mother glanced around the terminal, noticing the reactions of others. She wanted this moment to be educational, not just for her son or the pilot, but for everyone who had witnessed it. She spoke again, her voice carrying naturally through the space without needing to be loud. "We all face moments where assumptions are made, where fear or doubt leads us to question others unfairly. What matters is how we respond. We must correct mistakes, acknowledge errors, and ensure fairness. That is how we grow as individuals and as a community." The pilot shifted uncomfortably. He was clearly humbled by her words. He had expected a simple misunderstanding, something he could dismiss and forget, but instead he was confronted with a truth he could not ignore. His actions had caused stress, embarrassment, and fear, and now he could see the impact of his decisions. The teen watched quietly, absorbing the lesson that unfolded not just for the pilot, but for everyone present. He realized that life would present challenges, moments of unfair treatment and misunderstandings, but the way he responded, calmly, patiently, and with dignity, would define him more than the actions of others. A few passengers began to approach the mother, offering quiet words of support. "Thank you for handling that so calmly," one woman said. "It's inspiring to see someone address such a situation with grace." The mother nodded politely, acknowledging their words but keeping her focus on the teen and the lesson at hand. Security officers nearby began to relax, understanding that the situation was being resolved appropriately. They had initially arrived expecting a confrontation or resistance, but instead, they witnessed calm, reasoned authority. It was a moment that left an impression on them as well. reinforcing the importance of careful judgment and empathy in their roles. The pilot finally spoke, his voice low but sincere. "I apologize for my actions," he said. "I did not handle the situation correctly. I understand now that my assumptions were wrong and I regret causing unnecessary stress." The mother nodded, her expression serious but not unkind. "Thank you for acknowledging that. Apologies are important, but it is even more important to reflect on why mistakes happen and how to prevent them in the future. This is a moment to learn, not just for you, but for everyone here who may witness or participate in similar situations." The teen felt a quiet pride. He had faced a moment of unfair treatment, stayed calm under pressure, and now witnessed accountability and understanding unfold. It was a powerful lesson in courage, dignity, and the importance of standing up for oneself and others, even in challenging circumstances. Passengers around them continued to observe, some nodding in silent agreement, others whispering among themselves about the importance of fairness and respect. It was clear that the mother's calm and reasoned approach had left a lasting impression. The teen realized that moments like these were not just about personal vindication. They were about showing others the value of fairness and integrity in action. The mother placed a hand on her son's shoulder, giving him a reassuring squeeze. "You did very well," she said softly. "By staying calm and composed, you allowed the situation to be resolved without conflict. That is a skill that will serve you throughout life." The teen nodded, feeling a sense of relief and pride. He had been nervous, anxious, and even scared, but now he felt stronger, more confident and more aware of how to handle difficult situations. He realized that courage was not always about confrontation. It was often about patience, composure, and integrity. The pilot, still embarrassed, stepped back slightly, allowing the teen and his mother to move forward. He avoided eye contact, likely reflecting on his actions and the lessons he had just learned. The teen noticed this, understanding that the pilot's silence was not hostility, but a sign of reflection and acknowledgement. The teen and his mother continued toward the boarding area, the passengers around them gradually returning to their routines. Some whispered quietly, discussing what had happened, while others offered small nods or smiles of support. The teen felt a sense of connection with those around him, realizing that fairness and integrity were values that could inspire and influence others. Once at the plane, the mother ensured that her son was settled into his seat comfortably. She remained nearby, keeping a watchful eye, not because she doubted him, but because she understood the importance of support and reassurance after such a stressful experience. The teen settled in, feeling a mixture of excitement for the journey ahead and satisfaction that the morning's events had been handled with dignity. As the plane prepared for departure, the teen reflected on what had just happened. He realized that the experience had strengthened him in unexpected ways. He had faced unfair treatment, maintained his composure, and witnessed accountability and understanding in action. The lessons he had learned would stay with him, guiding him through future challenges and helping him navigate the complexities of human behavior with patience and grace. The mother spoke quietly to him as the plane began taxiing. "Remember, life will present challenges. People may misjudge you. Assumptions may be made and mistakes will happen. But how you respond, calmly, respectfully, and with integrity, will define you more than anything else." The teen nodded, understanding the weight of her words. He had seen the consequences of assumptions, the importance of fairness, and the power of calm authority. He felt prepared for future challenges, knowing that his actions, demeanor, and patience could influence outcomes in ways that anger or fear could not. Passengers settled into their seats, some still quietly discussing the events that had unfolded. The teen looked out the window as the plane lifted off the runway, feeling a sense of freedom and excitement. He had learned valuable lessons about fairness, courage, and integrity, and he felt ready to face the world with confidence. The mother smiled quietly, observing her son with pride. She knew that the experience, though difficult, had strengthened him. She also knew that the pilot, the passengers, and even the security officers had learned something important about fairness, assumptions, and human behavior. It was a moment that would resonate with everyone involved, a reminder that patience, composure, and integrity could transform challenging situations into opportunities for growth and understanding. As the plane climbed higher, the teen leaned back in his seat, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and excitement. He had faced a difficult and unfair situation, stayed composed under pressure, and witnessed the power of fairness and accountability in action. The lessons he had learned would stay with him, guiding him in future challenges and interactions, and as the sun shone brightly outside the window, the teen realized that this journey was not just about reaching a destination. It was about growing stronger, wiser, and more confident in the face of life's unexpected challenges. The morning's events had tested him, taught him, and prepared him for whatever lay ahead, leaving him ready to embrace the journey with courage and dignity. As the plane leveled off and began to cruise above the clouds, the teen finally allowed himself to relax. The tension and stress from the morning's events slowly melted away, replaced by a sense of relief and accomplishment. He leaned back in his seat, looking out of the window at the endless sky. The sun glinted off the clouds, and for a moment he simply enjoyed the beauty of the world outside. He had been through a challenging situation, and now, in this quiet moment, he could reflect on what had happened. The mother sat beside him, calm and composed as always. She watched her son with a quiet smile, proud of how he had handled everything. "You know," she said softly, "not every challenge in life will be this dramatic, but the lessons are the same. Patience, composure, and dignity matter in every situation, no matter how small or large." The teen nodded thoughtfully. He had understood that lesson already, but hearing it again from his mother in the calm environment of the plane made it feel even more important. He realized that life would often present unfair situations, misunderstandings, and moments when others might misjudge him. How he responded would always make the difference. The flight attendants walked down the aisle, checking on passengers and making sure everyone was comfortable. The teen noticed a few passengers glance at him with subtle nods and polite smiles, as if acknowledging what had happened earlier. Some whispered to each other, sharing how impressed they were with the teen's composure and the mother's handling of the situation. Even at a distance, the teen felt the silent support of those around him. The pilot, sitting in the cockpit, was still thinking about the morning's events. He had returned to his duties, but the embarrassment and reflection lingered. He realized how quickly assumptions could escalate, how fear or bias could lead to unfair treatment, and how important it was to act with fairness and care. For him, this incident had been a humbling reminder of the responsibilities he carried, not just for safety, but for treating every passenger with respect. The teen's mother noticed her son staring quietly out the window, lost in thought. "What are you thinking about?" she asked gently. "I'm thinking about how quickly things can go wrong, even when you haven't done anything wrong," he replied, "and how staying calm can make all the difference." She nodded. "Exactly. Life will test you in ways you can't always predict. People may judge, situations may seem unfair, and fear may cloud judgment. But if you remain calm, composed, and respectful, you can influence outcomes in ways that anger or panic never could." The teen smiled softly. He felt stronger than he had before the flight. He realized that he had learned something about himself, something that would help him in school, with friends, and in life. He had faced a stressful, unfair situation, stayed calm, and witnessed accountability and fairness. That combination of experience and reflection was invaluable. Passengers around them continued to settle into their flights, some chatting quietly, others reading or resting. The teen noticed that the atmosphere on the plane was calm, but he knew that the memory of the morning's events would stay with him. It had been a stressful start, but it had also been a learning moment. He had discovered resilience, patience, and the importance of integrity in difficult situations. The mother leaned slightly toward him. "You may also notice that people remember moments like this," she said. "Sometimes one situation can teach more than years of lessons in a classroom. You've just experienced one of those moments." The teen nodded, understanding her meaning. The embarrassment, the tension, and the unfair treatment had been uncomfortable, but they had also been instructive. He had witnessed how patience, fairness, and composure could turn a tense situation into a learning experience, for himself, for the pilot, and even for the passengers who observed it. Meanwhile, the pilot, now fully focused on the flight, reflected quietly on the morning. He thought about the assumptions he had made, the fear that had guided his judgment, and the lesson he had received. He realized that his actions, even if unintentional, had consequences. For the first time in a long while, he understood the importance of questioning his own biases and ensuring that he treated every passenger with fairness and respect. Back in the cabin, the teen's mother gently reminded him of one more lesson. Remember, strength is not always loud or aggressive. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's about how you carry yourself in moments when others may misjudge you. That strength will help you in ways you cannot yet imagine. The teen took a deep breath and nodded. He had felt that strength during the morning's ordeal. It had helped him stay composed, and now it gave him confidence as he looked forward to the trip ahead. He felt proud not only of how he had handled the situation, but also of the example his mother had set. She had taught him that authority, composure, and fairness could resolve situations that force, anger, or confrontation never could. As the flight continued, the teen reflected quietly. He thought about the passengers who had watched, the flight attendants who had helped, and the pilot who had learned a lesson in humility. He realized that one incident could ripple far beyond the immediate moment. How he had responded, and how his mother had handled the situation, had left an impression on many people, a reminder that fairness and integrity mattered in every action. The mother glanced at her son and smiled. "You'll remember this for the rest of your life," she said, "and the lessons you've learned will continue to guide you, not just today, but in every future challenge you face." The teen nodded, feeling the truth of her words. He realized that life would continue to test him, but he now carried tools to handle difficult situations with dignity, patience, and confidence. The unfair treatment he had faced had not defeated him. It had strengthened him, giving him clarity and resilience. Passengers nearby began chatting quietly, some commenting on how unusual the morning had been. The teen noticed a few nods and smiles directed at him and his mother. It was a quiet acknowledgement of the strength, patience, and composure they had shown. Even without words, the recognition felt powerful. The flight attendants moved down the aisle, checking on passengers and offering assistance. The teen observed how everyone had returned to their routines, but he knew that the memory of the morning's events would linger in the minds of those who had witnessed it. For him, it was a reminder of the importance of integrity, fairness, and calmness under pressure. The pilot's reflection in the cockpit was silent but profound. He realized that he had been quick to judge, and that his actions had consequences that reached far beyond what he initially imagined. He resolved that in the future, he would approach situations with more thought, more patience, and more awareness of the impact of his decisions. Meanwhile, the teen looked out at the horizon, feeling a mixture of excitement and pride. He was finally on his journey, ready to explore, learn, and grow. The morning's events had tested him, but they had also prepared him for the future. He understood now that challenges would come, but the way he faced them, calmly, respectfully, and with integrity, would define who he was and who he could become. The mother's quiet hand on his shoulder reminded him that support and guidance mattered. She had been there when he needed her, but she had also allowed him to face the situation and learn from it. Her presence had been both a shield and a guide, and he realized how fortunate he was to have such a role model. As the plane flew steadily through the sky, the teen felt a sense of peace. The stress, fear, and embarrassment of the morning were behind him. What remained was the clarity of lessons learned, the pride in his own composure, and the knowledge that fairness, integrity, and patience could turn even the most challenging situations into opportunities for growth. He glanced at his mother one last time before resting his head against the window. "Thank you," he whispered. "I learned a lot today." She smiled gently. "You did very well. Never forget these lessons. They will serve you throughout your life." The teen closed his eyes briefly, allowing himself to rest. The plane continued its journey, carrying him toward new experiences and opportunities. He felt ready, stronger than ever, and confident that he could face the world with patience, integrity, and composure. The morning's events would always be a part of him, a reminder of how strength, dignity, and calmness can turn even the most difficult moments into lessons of a lifetime. As the sun glimmered over the horizon, casting golden light across the clouds, the teen felt a deep sense of hope and determination. He had faced an unexpected challenge, navigated it with dignity, and witnessed fairness restored. And now, as the plane soared higher, he knew he was ready for whatever life would bring next.